Hello. Today, our group 2 will be discussing chronic stress and how it presents itself in the workplace. We have three speakers today, Claudia Ruiz, Edward Thomas, and myself, Jasmine Nunn. Edward Thomas will start us off today in chronic stress and what it actually is.
Thank you, Jasmine. Give me a second to share my screen with you here. Chronic stress is a long-term, uncomfortable emotional experience or experiences. And those experiences are accompanied by predictable biochemical, physiological, and behavioral changes. The key word here is predictable. Chronic stress and the results of chronic stress are often predictable, and we can see these things happen to is that often people do not realize the effects of chronic stress on their physiological health, or they don't really realize how it's affecting them behaviorally. Some people do, but often most of us recognize it at the last minute when someone's had to point it out to us. So I took these three responses and I put them in three columns to make it easier to understand. The first column to the left, the biochemical responses, are those systems in our body that are affected immediately by chronic stress. Our body regulates levels of cortisol, and chronic stress seems to interfere with that regulation process. Our body also regulates our hormone levels, and again, chronic stress impacts the regulation of our hormone levels. So just in those two areas alone, and there are others, but in those two areas alone can cause major effects or impacts on our physiological health. So what are some of those? And if you look at the second column, I've bulleted some of the more common and predictable ones. First on there is an overactive immune system. You hear about people having suddenly, I have a lot of allergies and I don't understand where that's come from, or maybe someone develops asthma that doesn't have a history of asthma in their family. Those kind of things can be triggered by cortisol levels being out of whack in our bodies. Also, inflammation. We can have inflammation of joints, inflammation of organs, inflammation of systems and pathways in our body. And obviously, anytime parts of your body are inflamed, that's going to create other issues. Slow metabolism, not feeling like you want to do anything. That's why a lot of people come in who are stressed out from work and they just want to crash. They have no energy, they have no drive, they don't even feel like exercising. Decreased sex drive. There's a lot of literature out there about people who are suffering from stress or long-term stress or chronic stress, seeking medical help for decreased libido. Taking longer to heal, taking much longer to heal. When we're sick, our body just does not recover as quickly. One of the obvious things that's very common and predictable with chronic stress is redistribution of body fat. Now, depending on the shape of the individual, it could even be in the arms, it could be in the thighs, it could be in the abdomen, but the abdomen is most commonplace. And finally, if all of these things, or even some of these things, are out of whack, you're definitely going to be susceptible to infection. So if these things are going on biochemically and they cause these changes physiologically, then the third part of this is that chronic stress can impact us behaviorally. And again, we may be eliciting these behaviors and not even realize that they're tied to the stress that we're under. Experiencing pain and becoming more sensitive to pain is a hallmark of chronic stress. Limited mobility in your joints and in your flexibility of your arms, your legs, your feet can be a condition created by chronic stress. Increased forgetfulness is a condition that is very common with chronic stress. It's amazing that the harder we work, the more we work, the longer the hours we work, we often wonder why we'll forget the most simple things, and that's why. We've talked about surprising weight gain, which again is very common, and probably most serious of all is the last bullet there. Chronic stress behaviorally leads to depression and anxiety. And again, for the purposes of this conversation today, you may have an employee that's anxious or depressed and not even know it. So with that, I'll turn it back over to my colleagues.
All right. So today I will be discussing chronic stress in the workplace and how we end up behaving because of all that chronic stress. Usually chronic stress happens when you don't have control over your job functions. For example, a bus driver. They don't have control over the weather or the traffic, or the kids screaming in the back of the bus. But they do know that they have to get those children to school on time and safely. So you can imagine the stress a bus driver may be feeling, compared to someone who has complete control over their schedule. So that's how it usually can start to develop. Also, if your office environment isn't the best, now there's a term called desk rage. So people just lash out violently after all the pent up stress from all the phone calls they have to take, all the responsibilities they have in place, but they may feel as if they have not enough time. So that feeling of being overwhelmed creates chronic stress, and everyone is different. So other people will lash out violently, which the U.S. is one of the most violent nations in the industrialized world, according to stress.org. So that alone says a lot about the working conditions and how the employees are feeling at this point in our lives. And also, some employees will start to not react physically, but mentally. And so they can develop anxiety and depression. And that also can cost the company thousands of dollars when employees are calling in sick every week because they're having a mental health day. So that's why it's important to keep your employees healthy and happy, not only physically and mentally, to ensure that you retain these employees because they enjoy the work environment, and they don't feel stressed. The kind of stress you never even had a chance to develop if you are able to find the target source of how and why it is developing. I will be sharing a personal story now about some kind of stress that happened in my workplace a few years ago, about 4 years ago. I was working in a call center and in a health insurance agency. And the supervisors, they were having sexual relationships with the employees. So they had favorites. And that favoritism allowed them to get put off the phones. And so we didn't essentially have to work. Everyone else was taking most of the phone calls. And so that caused me to have a lot of stress. That everyone was just playing, laughing around. And so I had white hair. I was extremely depressed, stressed out, gained an exponential amount of weight because they had donuts. And the only thing that I looked forward to were the carbs and the sugar. So needless to say, that was a temporary job. I was there for 8 months, and the business is no longer. It went bankrupt. I'm not sure what happened. It's no longer there. But best decision of my life. So that inspired me. So now Edward will be sharing his personal story about some kind of stress developed in his life.
Thank you, Jasmine. My experience had to do with a bad boss. I had a bad boss who liked to scream and yell and berate and belittle employees. And when it's first happening to you, you take it very personal. But luckily, I was able to use a little bit of my training and I'd sit back and watch this person do the same thing to multiple employees. I saw a lot of employees put on weight. I know I put on weight. Uh, Other employees, including me too, we were all beginning to have major health problems. Uh, we were, all of us were constantly in and out sick. Um, people hated going to meetings. It was a really horrible situation. And in the end, I got actually developed shingles and at a really young age, and ended up going to see the doctor. And my doctor said, the only thing that's causing this is chronic stress, and you need to do something about that. So I tried exercising, I tried mindfulness, I tried it all. But in the end, uh, sometimes a solution means you have to get out of that really bad situation. So I did. I got out of that bad situation and got another job. And amazing, within a couple of months of being at the new job, all of those problems just started going away, and I lost weight, and I started feeling good again, and my energy level came back up. So that's my story.
Okay, so as my classmate explained, chronic stress can seem overwhelming, and we may feel unable to regain control over our lives. So what can we do about chronic stress? The first thing to do is to recognize that and admit that it exists. You cannot do anything about something that you do not acknowledge is present. The second thing is to be able to find the time or manage your time in such a way that you can develop and implement strategies to manage the stress that you are attempting to deal with. Most stress management strategies require a commitment to taking the time to practice them. Strategies can help to reduce stress levels and improve our well-being. And here are some of the strategies we thought can help with stress, chronic stress. Understanding the signs and symptoms. These indications can vary, but if a person can recognize their own signals of stress, they will be better able to manage them. Identifying triggers. It is not always possible to avoid triggers of stress. I mean, we have stress everywhere, at work, at home, but if we take note of specific triggers, it can help us develop coping strategies which may involve reducing exposure. Exercising regularly. Physical activity increases the body's production of endorphins, which are hormones that boost the mood and reduce stress. Exercise can involve walking, running, cycling, playing sports. They all help with stress. Social support. Speaking to friends and family and getting involved at work and employment assistance programs, they all help and provide emotional support and motivation to take action. Taking supplements. For example, taking a multivitamin and nutrients to help balance the stress response, such as vitamin C, the B complex, zinc, and magnesium, which is the relaxation mineral. It's super important. Trying mindfulness. People who practice this form of meditation use breathing and thought techniques to create awareness of their own bodies and surroundings. Mindfulness can help and have a positive impact on stress, anxiety, and depression. Reframing your point of view. Challenge your beliefs, attitudes, and responses to common situations and reframe your point of view to reduce stress. And last but not least, improving sleep quality. Getting too little sleep or a sleep of poor quality can contribute to stress. Try to get at least 7 hours every night and set regular times for going to bed and waking up. Avoid caffeine, eating, and intense physical activities in the hours before going to bed. If these strategies, such as the ones that I just talked about, are not helping, it is important to see a healthcare professional for advice and support. They may recommend psychological therapies such as cognitive behavioral therapy. I hope these strategies can help you if you ever have chronic stress, but just remember to slow down, enjoy life, have fun, breathe, go outside and meditate. Thank you so much for taking the time to watch our presentation. Today you heard from 3 speakers from group 2. If you have any questions, comments, or concerns, please feel free to email us. Thank you.